it's Anna. Welcome to my channel if you're new to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you're not new to my channel. Before we get started on the video, like, comment, tell me where you're at, tell me what you're doing. If you're driving, don't comment, pull over and then comment. I just want to know how y'all are doing today. Let's see my other social media. It's AnnaHine6787. It's always at the top corner, just so you know. But today, if you can't tell by the title, we're going to be talking about the Wonderland System. Quick disclaimer, I am not a medical professional. And most of y'all are also not medical professionals. Even if you are a medical professional, which if you're a medical professional, you're probably not going to be commenting on this video, your thoughts and your opinions. But if you are a medical professional, you're not their medical professional. So that's my little quick disclaimer at the beginning of the video. The Wonderland System may be true, may be fake, but it is not our place to comment on that. So I'm just gonna throw that little quick disclaimer in. So if you don't know what the Wonderland System is, they're a creator on TikTok with DID. If you don't know what DID is, it is dissociative identity disorder, more commonly known as DID. It is described as having 2 or more personality states, and it is most of the time, very rarely is it not. And by very rarely, I mean 0.1 in 100. That's not an actual statistic, but that's the chances of it not being. Is it not caused by this? It's caused by trauma, usually by childhood trauma and severe childhood trauma. The Wonderland System is the system of alters. Some people call them by other names, but alters are the different personalities or the different sort of people living in the body. The body is 18 years old. They were officially diagnosed, and they actually did tell this story, so I'm going to tell you guys the story that they told. So they were in and out of mental institutions for 6 years. They were struggling a lot. They couldn't figure out what was going on. And around 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, when they were 15 years old, they realized that they were probably someone with DID, because they realized that there was something just in them. The host at the time realized. So they began looking into it and started working on it, and around a couple months ago, in September, they said it was a couple months before that, they talked to their therapist, and their therapist started working on diagnosing them. That said, hey, you have the traits of DID, you most likely have DID, let's get you through the steps. And as they say, it is not an easy process to be diagnosed with DID, much less when you are a minor. So they were 17, 18 years old. It's very difficult to get diagnosed as a minor because they don't want to diagnose it in minors as much as adults. So the process of being diagnosed with DID, I don't fully know it intense, but the way they describe it is they were observed, they were asked questions, that multiple of their alters talked to the therapist, and that's how they got on the steps of being diagnosed with DID. But according to them, they are officially diagnosed. They talk about their childhood trauma, but they don't say what their childhood trauma is, and I don't want people speculating, so please don't speculate their childhood trauma. It's not our place to do that. Childhood trauma is a very personal and private thing, and it's a very difficult thing. So another little disclaimer. Their conversations have been going on around TikTok, the Wonderland System in general. So let's talk about the reasons why people have been talking about them a lot and why this conversation has suddenly blown up on TikTok. They have an alter. It's called Yama, and it is not considered a human. It's because they have non-human species. It is something else. I don't fully know what it is. I don't think they didn't fully describe what Yama was, but this alter is over 1,000 years old and has a ton of knowledge and is very wise. Another reason why people are talking about the Wonderland System is because they have over 270 alters currently. This is a very high number. In the other DID accounts that I've seen on TikTok, and I'm not saying they are the baseline for everything, but on average, I've seen 15 to 20 alters. And 270 is considered to be a lot, especially compared to what I've seen on TikTok. And that's why people are talking about this. Hey, why does this person have 270 alters? Especially since this was posted around a week ago that they had 270 alters. Back in September, they only had 204 alters. And people are very interested in knowing why have there been an increase in so many alters from September to January. And that's where people have doubts in their mind, and that's where some criticism is coming forth. There are some people that are taking it too far, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video, but that's like where the basic criticism is. It's like, how does a system create or have that many altars in a short period of time? These 204 altars, there are more than 100 that are different species that are not human, and people are very interested in this as well. I personally was very interested in this. I actually didn't know that this was like possible in DID, but it's a new thing that I learned of. Actually, it's pretty common because DID stems, the way I understand it and the way they described it was because DID stems from a childhood trauma. A lot of times these children, when creating DID, have altars that appear that are non-human, because the non-human altars can combat the trauma in ways that a human couldn't, and it's like a developmental process, which is just really interesting to me. I personally didn't know that like that was possible, but it's super interesting. Apparently they have fairies, they have gods, they have elves, they have animals, they have hybrids, which is like an animal and a human mixed together. It's like super interesting. The next thing that people were kind of talking about was that the Wonderland System's inner world. So you have multiple altars living in your body if you have DID, and when they are not fronting, which means when they are not like the person, they are living in the inside in like a world. So you just like think about it in the world, like it's all mental, but physically imagine just like a world living inside of a body. And this is where the altars are when they are not fronting. And this is why certain altars, I mean all altars, have amnesia. So when they are not fronting, they don't know what's going on the outside because they're living in the inner world. So that's just like the way they fragment. So the inner world in the Wonderland system is it's a planet, but they all live on an island. And they described this island, and they have like 3 different sections. There's prisons, there's hospitals, there's shops, there's stores, there's an entire economy. It's like an entire world in and of itself. With 270 altars, I'm not surprised that they developed a world inside themselves. There's always been inner worlds in DID systems, so I don't know why people are so shocked about this, but I think what people were mostly shocked about was in the Wonderland System's inner world, they have doctors and medics because there's hospitals, right? People were kind of talking about this, and they were like, well, if there's doctors, they don't like actually have medical degrees. No. Holy crap, that was a bug. No, they don't actually have medical degrees. These doctors are in the inner world running a hospital, and they don't come out and think that they're doctors. So I was just fascinated with like the criticism behind this like aspect. The creator never once came out and said, hey, I have a medical degree because I have doctors in my inner world. They just said like some people are doctors, some people are shop owners. That doesn't mean they're actually shop owners like outside. So I was just, the next thing that people decided to pull at was the altars dating people. So there are 270 altars, and multiple of them are dating each other. This is like actually very common. I don't think people realize that. That is very common in DID. Different altars will date each other. It's very common because they live in a world in and of themselves, and it's just their community. So they like, just like someone would date someone in a high school, like that's what happens in like with altars. The next thing people decided to talk about was that specific altars in the Wonderland system are POC members or are of different races. Again, this is very common. They don't get to choose what these altars are. The system doesn't get to choose and see what they look like. Again, they're living in a world in and of themselves. They look like people in this world. They have different attributes, different physical appearances, and even though the body isn't POC, doesn't mean that the altars cannot be POC. So I think that was like very interesting as well, that people like were picking at this and saying, well, like, oh, that means they act like they're POC. No, they realize the different altars, according to the Wonderland system, realize that they are not oppressed, like, when they're fronting, because they don't have the skin color to match what attributes they are in the inner world. The next thing that people decided to kind of talk on was that there are different altars with like Republican viewpoints, and like there's an economy in the inner world, and so it must be like the Earth. Again, it's a world in it of itself. It is nothing like our Earth. Yes, there are aspects that are similar, and there are certain details that are similar, but it is also completely separate in the way that it has magic, it has elves, it has fairies. So maybe the Republican and conservatives are more like the Republican and conservatives that are in Europe, not in the United States. And although they may have more conservative viewpoints, it's because that personality is fragmented into different altars, and there are certain people that would fragment into Republican viewpoints. But I don't think that means that they are faking DID. So they left the internet for about 5 days, and then they came back, and like the whole system left for 5 days, and they came back about 5 hours ago. Well, it's gonna be later because I'm uploading it later, but my time 5 hours ago is currently like 1 a.m. in Argentina. And they talked about everything, and they addressed certain points because they were really, really frustrated. I understand why they're frustrated. There are a lot of bullying and harassment videos that are going on out there, but we're going to talk about that in a sec. Let's talk about like their statement. It's not really an apology, their statement addressing everything. They talked about the POC like altars, they talked about the doctors in the medical world, they talked about the non-human altars, and then they talked about the different pronunciations and their stutters. So the POC, similar to what I said, they don't create their people, they don't like pick and choose, and they know that they're not oppressed. Their altars know that they're not oppressed. The non-human altars is very prominent with DID. They talked about their 270 altars, which is I think the only aspect that like a ton of people agree with is that it means that they were creating an altar every 30 hours from September to January based on the increase. So people were just sort of concerned, like, what is the amount of trauma that you are currently suffering that you are creating more and more altars? That's just the one that they decided to just say, like, it happens. Like, I just create this many altars. There's people that have over 1,000 altars. They explained it like I did. They don't mean that they're doctors out in the real world, but rather doctors in the inner world. So lastly, let's talk about the conversation being had about the Wonderland system. There are a few different viewpoints, so I'm going to talk about those few different viewpoints. So the first viewpoint is the viewpoint that is giving constructive criticism about the Wonderland system, is concerned, is looking into it more, and is unsure if they're someone suffering with DID or if they're unsure if it's something else. And these people overall have good intentions. They don't mean any harm to the Wonderland system, but they should be more careful just because, again, they don't have medical knowledge most of the time, and most of the time they aren't their doctors, the Wonderland system's doctors. The second viewpoint is the viewpoint that I personally believe is bullying and harassment. The amount of videos that I have seen in the last 24 hours that have been awful towards the Wonderland system is absolutely ridiculous. It's hundreds and hundreds of videos making fun of this creator, not only on their looks, but on their makeup, on their different altars. There's some really, really mean ones in there, and I personally don't believe in like calling other people out by like posting their videos, but if you just look through the hashtag the Wonderland system, it's absolutely horrendous. And I think that these people are claiming that they are doing it with good intentions because this person is faking DID, but they're not. They're doing it with awful intentions. And if other people that have DID watch these videos, they would be like, wow, you don't like me, you hate me because of my mental illness. Then there's the third category of people that are talking about just mental illnesses in general and the stigmatization, and how perhaps the Wonderland system is causing more stigmatization because people are talking about it and people don't believe that it's true, and thus there's more stigmatization with DID and mental illness in general. And these people, again, might have good intentions, but again, they don't know the medical diagnosis of the Wonderland system. They weren't there, they aren't their doctor. They can't say that it's because of the Wonderland system. Then there's the fourth category that doesn't blame the Wonderland system, but that is just talking about mental health in general, and how different mental illnesses are portrayed in the media, and perhaps there needs to be more careful way to show your mental illness on camera. There's then the other one that's like, hey, like, I don't know if this is true or this is fake, I'm just talking about the situation. That one's me. I think this conversation demonstrates a very interesting picture. one picture where it's like people believe that different mental illnesses are supposed to be one way. I'm not saying everyone, but there's a lot of people that believe that mental illness should be a certain way and portrayed a certain way, and that it can't go outside of this box, that maybe a toe could step out, but not more than that. Then there's the group of people that I find interesting that are like, well, everything can be in every different way. And I find that super interesting as well, that they believe like mental illness is more of, like certain mental illnesses are more like a blob that can like shape to the person that it goes to. I just find it super fascinating, this conversation that's being had on TikTok. And a lot of these people are really young, so maybe they don't know any better, but that's why people like me are here to tell them, hey, like, you should be more careful with your words, like, you're hurting people. And I'm not saying like the people that are bullying, but like the people that are more just having constructive criticism, where they're like, oh, I don't know if they're real or they're fake. You can't know. Like, it's not your place to know. And I think those are the people that just need to be a little more careful, because they're gonna hurt people unintentionally. So that's my entire video on the Wonderland system. Thank you guys so much for watching. I want to make sure you're subscribed, you liked, and you commented on this video. It would mean the absolute world to me. Also, go follow my other social media. On Instagram, I post some really cool content. On TikTok, I post my other really cool content, and so on. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching.